I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Linda and I had been married for 7 years, and honestly, I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our fights, but what couple does? We had a pretty normal life: work, bills, occasional nights out, and a shared love for our little house by the lake. But about 6 months ago, I started noticing small things. She was more defensive when I asked about her phone, keeping it close, hiding texts. She started coming home late from work more often, always with some excuse about stuck in meetings or running late with clients. The first time I saw the scent of another man on her clothes, I brushed it off as a business dinner or maybe a colleague she'd been friendly with. But the scent didn't fade, and I started feeling like I was losing her little by little. Then came the signs I couldn't ignore anymore. She became tense when I brought up plans for the weekend, would suddenly get defensive if I asked about her whereabouts. Her phone was always locked, even more than usual, and I caught her in a few lies that didn't make sense. She'd say she was out with friends, then I'd find her at some bar she never mentioned. It was like she was playing a game I wasn't supposed to see. Still, I kept quiet, convincing myself I was overthinking it. But the day I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower, that was my breaking point. I found the messages. There weren't many at first, just some flirty texts with a guy named Mark, her boss. Photos of them together at some fancy restaurant, her laughing at his stupid jokes, calling him the one who gets me through the workday. The worst part was the flirty tone, the way she talked about seeing him after hours, how he made her feel special when I clearly couldn't anymore. My stomach dropped. I wasn't just angry, I was hurt, betrayed, and stupid for not seeing it earlier. She was cheating on me with her boss, Mark. The guy who always seemed a little too familiar with her, like they'd been hiding something for months. I sat there in the dark, clutching her phone, trying to process what I'd just seen. I felt sick, a mixture of rage and sadness. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily? And what was I supposed to do now? I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to confront her, but I didn't want just a fight. I wanted truth, real answers. That's when I decided I'd have to see her face to face and get everything out in the open. I didn't want to be the fool who never saw it coming. I needed to know what her side was, even if I already guessed it. I kept her phone hidden in my pocket as I waited for her to come home that evening, nerves twisting in my gut. When she finally walked through the door, that fake smile she always threw on when she thought she was hiding everything. Yeah, I saw right through it. That fake smile she threw at me when she walked in still haunts me. I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes, but she masked it quickly with that bitchy smirk. She knew I had found out, and she was trying to act like everything was normal, like she hadn't just been caught red-handed. I didn't say a word at first. I just stood there holding her phone like it was a weapon, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. I was furious but also numb, like my mind was trying to catch up with what I'd just discovered. She didn't say much at first, just started yapping her usual crap about how things weren't what they seemed, and Mark isn't what I thought he was, and that she was just stressed at work. That's when I lost it. I told her I knew about her little affair, about how she'd been sneaking around with her boss and lying right to my face. I made her look at the messages, the photos, everything I'd found. Her eyes darted around, trying to deny it, but her lips trembled. She was caught and she knew it. Her reaction was classic. She started with the sob story, crying about how she didn't mean for it to go this far, how Mark was the only one who made her feel alive, and how she was just so overwhelmed with her job. She told me she was under stress and that I didn't understand her. I could believe the bullshit coming out of her mouth. She was lying so brazenly, like it didn't matter that I was standing right there, hearing every excuse. She looked me dead in the eyes and said she loved me, but she needed something else. Something her marriage just wasn't giving her anymore. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to scream at her, tell her how much I hated her, how she turned what was supposed to be my life into a lie. But I kept my cool, at least for a while. I asked her why she did it, why Mark of all people, her boss, who she used to act like she hated. Her answer: that Mark knew how to treat her, that he paid attention to her, listened to her. I could see the venom behind her words, like she was trying to convince herself she was justified in what she was doing. It was disgusting. I remember feeling a strange mix of shock, betrayal, and an almost sick sense of clarity. If she could lie so easily, if she could cheat so blatantly, then I had to do something. I told her she needed to leave that. I couldn't stay in the same house with her anymore, not after this. She cried even harder, trying to make me feel guilty, throwing in some "I'm sorry," but I didn't believe her, not anymore. That night I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, her words, her crying, her fake smile. I felt like my entire world had been shattered in just a few minutes. The pain was intense, but beneath it all was a cold, burning anger. How could she do this to me, to us? I kept asking myself over and over. And the worst part, I knew she'd kept lying to me, hiding her affair, betraying everything we built. I realized I'd been blind, too trusting, too naive. But I also knew this wasn't going to be a simple, easy fix. The betrayal had cut too deep. I was angry at her, pissed at Mark, and most of all, I was furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. I stayed up that night, trying to come to terms with what I'd learned, trying to figure out what my next move was going to be. I wasn't sure if I wanted to fight for us anymore or just cut my losses, but I knew one thing: things weren't ever going to be the same after this. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone I didn't even recognize. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I kept replaying everything from the night before: the confrontation, her tears, her lies. I couldn't believe how quickly my world had crumbled. All the plans we'd made, the future I had pictured, gone in an instant. The worst part was knowing she had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. All those little signs I ignored, all those moments I thought weren't significant, turns out they were just the tip of the iceberg. I decided I needed to get some space, so I went outside for a walk. The air was cold and crisp, but it did little to clear my mind. I was furious, yes, but mostly hurt. How could she do this to me, to us? I kept thinking about the nights I spent wondering if she was hiding something, and now I knew she was. It wasn't just an affair, it was a betrayal of everything we'd built together. I thought about the times she'd been bitchy, dismissive, and how she'd lie in bed next to me, pretending everything was fine. She was a master at hiding things, but not anymore. While I was out, I decided I had to find out exactly how long this had been going on. I knew I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed proof. I started digging through her emails, her social media, anything that could give me a clearer picture. I found more messages from Mark, some exchanged right around the time she started acting weird. There were texts that hinted at meetups, sneaky plans, and even some "I can't wait to see you again" type of messages. I was shocked at how brazen she'd been, trying to hide it, but also trying to convince herself she was justified. Meanwhile, her attitude hadn't changed much. She still threw her attitude around, calling me paranoid or controlling when I asked her about her whereabouts. She kept insisting she was just stressed, that she needed space, that I didn't understand her. Honestly, I didn't care what she claimed anymore. I just wanted the truth, no more lies, no more bullshit. I was starting to realize that she'd been cheating on me for longer than I thought, possibly since before I even left for that conference. That day, I decided to finally call her out directly. I told her I knew everything, about Mark, about the lies, about how she'd been sneaking around. I told her I wasn't stupid and I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. Her reaction. Of course, she denied everything, called me crazy, said I was overreacting, and that I was just insecure. It was the same old story. The more she lied, the more furious I got. I told her she needed to leave that day. I was done pretending everything was okay, but her attitude only got bitchier. She snapped, told me I was a controlling, jealous husband who didn't appreciate her. She accused me of not giving her what she needed, of stifling her. That's when I realized how manipulative she was, trying to turn the tables, make me feel guilty for catching her. She kept saying stuff like, "I need my space," "Mark makes me feel alive," and "You're just too dull for me anymore." And even then, I could see the smirk she tried to hide, like she was enjoying her little victory. I felt the rage building inside me. I wanted to shake her, tell her how much she'd screwed everything up, but I held back. Instead, I told her she had to decide: Either she left or I was going to take some serious action. I wasn't going to keep living in a house where I was constantly suspicious, constantly feeling like I was walking on eggshells. I told her she could take her things and I wouldn't stop her. She stormed out, throwing some parting shots about how I was too controlling and just jealous. As she drove off, I sat there alone, feeling emptier than I ever had. There was a strange calm in the chaos, like I finally saw everything clearly. She was a bitch, a liar, and a cheat, and I was done being her fool. I knew I had to figure out what came next, but one thing was sure. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. That day I made a vow to myself. I'd get through this no matter what. I'd rebuild. Or I'd walk away for good. It was the hardest choice I'd ever made, but deep down, I knew I couldn't keep pretending she was innocent. The days that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and a kind of numb determination. I spent most of my time cleaning out her clothes, packing up her things, trying to make sense of what had gone wrong. Every item I touched seemed to carry a memory of a lie. Her clothes still smelled like Mark, that horrible scent of cheap cologne mixed with her perfume. It made me sick every time I caught a whiff, like a punch to the gut. I kept asking myself, how did I not see this coming? How did I let her manipulate me for so long? I decided I needed to get some of the evidence I'd uncovered out into the open. I couldn't just keep everything bottled up. If I was going to move on, I needed the truth out there, even if it hurt. I started drafting a message to her boss, Mark, exposing everything I knew about their affair, including the texts and pictures I'd found. I wanted him to know I wasn't going to be some pushover, that I'd blow the lid off this whole mess if I had to. I knew it was petty, but at this point I didn't really care. Meanwhile, I also reached out to a lawyer just to understand my options. I knew I wanted to divorce her, but I also wanted to make sure she didn't try to screw me over financially or emotionally. The lawyer told me to keep all the evidence I had, texts, messages, anything that proved she'd been unfaithful. I felt a strange sense of clarity. This was war, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. One night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, feeling this deep, gnawing pain. All I kept thinking about was how she had lied to me, how she'd turned our marriage into some game. I kept picturing her lying there, still smelling like Mark, still pretending she was innocent. I wondered how long she'd been doing this, how many nights she'd spent with him at that cabin when I was supposed to be away. The thought of her cheating behind my back made me feel so stupid, so naive. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she had just been playing me like a fool, but I knew I couldn't stay stuck in that pain forever. That day, I made a decision. I was done feeling sorry for myself. I was going to take control. I went to the cabin, what was left of her things, and took a few of her clothes, just enough to remind me of what she'd done. I left a note on the doorstep. "Don't come back. You chose Mark over us. I hope you're happy." It felt brutal, but it was necessary. I wanted her to understand that I was serious. This wasn't some petty fight. It was the end of the line. The moment was oddly liberating in a bitter way. It forced me to confront all the pain I'd been avoiding. I knew she'd try to come back, try to spin her lies again, but I was done with her manipulations. I also knew I needed to tell my friends, my family, what had happened. I didn't want to walk around pretending everything was fine anymore. I needed support, even if it meant exposing my own vulnerability. Looking back now, I realize how much I underestimated her. How much. I let her manipulate my emotions. I thought I knew her, but I was just blind to the truth. The hardest part was accepting that my marriage was over, that the woman I loved was a different person behind her pretty face and bitchy attitude. But I also learned something about myself. I'm stronger than I thought. I won't be a doormat. I won't be someone's fool. That's what this whole mess taught me. If you're in a relationship and you start feeling suspicious, trust your instincts, because ignoring them will only make it worse. I still feel the sting of betrayal every day, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. It's like I finally took the blinders off. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I won't let this ruin me. I'll rebuild. I'll move on. And maybe someday I'll find someone who actually values honesty and loyalty. That's what I'm holding onto now, to the hope that things can get better, even if it hurts like hell right now. The months that followed were some of the hardest in my life. Breaking free from her was like ripping off a Band-Aid that had been painfully stuck for years. I threw myself into work trying to keep my mind busy, but the scars were there, deep and raw. Every time I thought I was getting better, some small thing would remind me of her. Her scent on that abandoned cabin bed, her bitchy smirk, the way she lied with such ease. It was like the betrayal had infected every corner of my life. I couldn't sleep at night without reliving that last confrontation, those last words I said to her. Still, I knew I had to move forward. I filed for divorce, and the process was a roller coaster of emotions. There were moments of relief, then bursts of anger. Sometimes I'd wake up feeling empty, like I'd lost a part of myself. But I also started to realize that I was better off without her manipulations. I had underestimated her, sure, but I also underestimated my own resilience. I guess part of me kept thinking about the good times, the years we shared, and I felt guilty for wanting to cut her out completely. But then I would remember the lies, the sneaking around, the betrayal. No, I couldn't let myself forget what she'd done. One day, I finally sat down and looked at everything I'd gathered: texts, photos, messages. I wanted to be sure I had everything documented if things got ugly in court. As I went through it all again, a strange feeling settled in my chest, a weird mix of anger and relief. Anger at her for what she did, and relief that I was finally free from her grip. I knew she'd probably try to contact me, maybe even come back, begging for forgiveness or trying to spin her lies again. But I was done. I'd made my decision. I was moving on, even if it hurt. The hardest part was accepting that I might never fully understand why she cheated. Was it just about Mark? Was she unhappy with me? Or was she just the kind of person who lied and betrayed without a second thought? I didn't get a clear answer, and honestly, I don't think I ever will. But I learned something important. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. I can't keep living in the past wishing things were different. I have to accept that some wounds don't heal, and that's okay. I'll carry the scars, but I won't let them define me. I finally started dating again, cautiously at first. It was strange, opening up after everything, but I realized I deserved better. I deserved honesty, loyalty, someone who wouldn't cheat behind my back or lie to my face. I've met some good people, and even though the pain from her betrayal still lingers, I know I'm stronger now. I've learned not to ignore those nagging feelings, not to dismiss red flags just because I want things to be okay. Because in the end, pretending everything's fine only hurts more. Looking back, I wish I could tell my past self to pay closer attention, to listen to that little voice inside that warned me something was off. I've learned that no matter how much you love someone or want things to work out, betrayal changes everything. It's a hard lesson, but a necessary one. Trust is everything, and if it's broken, rebuilding is almost impossible. The only thing I can do now is move forward, stronger and wiser. And I hope anyone out there who's going through something similar knows that it's okay to feel broken for a while. Just don't let it consume you, because in time you'll find your way back to yourself. Looking back, I realized that betrayal changes a person forever. It's like a scar you carry inside, visible only to those who have been through it, but always there. I used to believe that love meant trust, that if you loved someone enough, they would never hurt you like this. Turns out, love isn't enough. Trust is fragile, and once it's shattered, it's nearly impossible to put back together. That lesson hit me hard, but it forced me to grow up faster than I wanted. I won't lie, some days are still tough. There are times I catch myself thinking about her, about what I lost, and I get angry all over again. But then I remind myself that I deserve better. I deserve honesty, loyalty, someone who genuinely loves me, not someone who cheats and lies. The most important thing I've learned is that I can survive this kind of betrayal. I can move on. I can rebuild my life from the ashes of my broken trust. Now I focus on myself. I spend more time with friends and family, and I've started to enjoy the little things again, getting back into hobbies I abandoned, traveling solo, and rediscovering what makes me happy outside of that toxic relationship. It's not easy, and some days I feel like I'm just pretending to be okay, but I know I'll get through it, because I've already survived the worst. If you're reading this and going through something similar, know that it's okay to feel broken. It's okay to be angry, to cry, to feel lost. But don't let those feelings define you. You're stronger than your pain. I've learned that betrayal is the end. It's a painful new beginning. It forces you to reevaluate what's important: trust, honesty, loyalty, and it pushes you to become a better version of yourself. I don't regret what happened. I don't regret uncovering the truth because now I know what real love and respect look like. I've accepted that sometimes love means letting go, not because you want to give up, but because you realize you deserve more. So here I am, finally at peace with myself. I may never forget what she did, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned to stand tall, to trust again slowly, and most importantly, to value myself enough to walk away from anything that isn't real or true. Life goes on and I'll keep moving forward, wiser, stronger, and more guarded than before. Because after all the betrayal, I know one thing for certain: I'm enough. And that's all that matters.